In preparing for this, I thought I'd talk a little bit about URISA and share some of my experiences. Share a little bit about what your work is like as a result of the evolving URISA phenomenon, and then give a little glimpse into what I think is going to happen in the future with respect to the technology. And then close with what that means for you and what it means for our organization, URISA. So first, 50 years, a long time. When I got to be 50 years old, my friends at URISA gave me a birthday party. I felt mature. I had my only birthday party in my life. I never wanted to happen again. URISA has matured, and it's provided us a forum. This really speaks to the point of inclusiveness. It's been a forum for me for sharing and for learning and for building friendships, and it was always a safe space for me. Other forums often are not so safe. So look around right now, please. See your friends. Those of you who don't have friends, take some before you leave. It has been a place, actually, where GIS has birthed itself in some ways. It's played a vital role. And looking out and seeing some of you again, you've glommed onto these different topics at different points in your life, and you've matured them here in this space. You've given papers about it, you've interacted about it, you've gotten peer review about it. It's been interesting. So I'm very fond, as you can see, about URISA. It's also supported many interests, and again here I'm making the case for inclusiveness and less formality on certification. It's nurtured visions, and some of them died. It allowed us to present our research and in a safe space without fear of the normal peer review of the academic space. It's also been an association that has evolved with different generations of technologies. When I started, we were well into the mainframe days, and we talked about them. It was the thing that some of the early founders really built their first things with. NCR, IBM, difficulty, and if you complain about software today, that software was all homemade software, handmade. And it was done in some ways by people who are curious, creating the first geographic, computational problems, people like Tobler and Dwayne Marble and of course Ed Horwood and others. They were experimenting. And as this evolution of platforms happened, Minis, workstations, and so on, things changed. Things became more accessible. Our field radically expanded, and more was able to be done by the stack rather than custom configuration stuff. That's pretty neat. And we're now, I would assert, at an age where things are going to change very radically. In my entire career, I've never seen anything quite like this year. I can take one measure, like our user groups, and our users have almost gone up in order of magnitude with every stage. 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. A few million GIS professionals now around the world. And now, I think it's about to change radically. And what's that going to mean for you? I mean, actually, what is it going to mean for our little association who has kind of gone through roller coasters of existence in different waves of technologies? Why is GIS so compelling now? Here are 5 things that I'd like to first just nail, because it is changing. First, well, most of you know this, these 5 things resonate to me. Maps communicate. Simple statement. GIS integrates and facilitates collaboration. This is very compelling, reasons why decision people actually like it. Spatial analytics create understanding. This is a discussion that we were having a moment ago. Geodesign, my original field, I got enchanted with this field, promises to create a better future, like being able to create better outcomes. And finally, the new platform technologies are going to extend the field enormously, beyond our wildest imaginations. This means faster and better, perhaps, decisions and decision-making. It means more communication about what's going on. If you're hunting for sales points, by the way, these are them. If you're talking to the managers, this is it. It's efficiency, improved communication, better decision-making. What manager doesn't want that for their organization? This is what's needed and wanted at cities, at states, at national. When we listened to the debates last night, this is what was underneath it. We want it to work out. Yet you and I, we can start with this. You and I are living in a world where it isn't. I mean, we're smart enough in this room to figure out it isn't going to work out. You figured that out, haven't you? We're living way beyond our means, and this is the thing that actually keeps me awake at night, every night. I think about it. We're way over the line. So you are my heroes, actually, because I actually think in your activities, in the way that you do things, and I'll show some of that in a minute, is the kernel for making a better world. First, maps communicate. Maps communicate stories, and I picked out these 7 maps because each of them tells stories. Often we make maps and they don't tell a story. Okay, I want to inspire you to tell stories better. The first one is about a hospital location in Haiti. I got this story last night on the plane coming up here. This guy gave me this map, and I just want to share it with you. See the little red dot down there on the bottom? That map, that dot was put on the map 8 days after the quake. It's the Seventh-day Adventist hospital in Haiti. And the dot was put on the map after this guy flew down there. He was a GIS professional. And he was working in the hospital. There's lines of people, orthopedic, nothing was coming in the way of supplies. So he finally went over to the UN and said, why don't you, our hospital's okay. Your hospital's not okay, it's all shattered. No, our hospital's okay. Send some stuff, we need supplies. The other little dots on the map were all the other hospitals. They knew what was going on, but not that dot. So finally, he couldn't convince him. He made a phone call to some guy in the US. Please, can you get the UN to put this dot on the map? That dot will mean that they'll start sending supplies. So calls were made. Finally, the dot was made after 8 days. 4 hours later, the supplies started arriving. Isn't that an amazing little story? This is the power of a dot on a map. The second map is the tsunami from Japan to the west coast. This map was designed years ago. When the tsunami hit, somebody just poured the data into it, and it showed hour by hour when the tsunami was going to hit. And that map saved lives in Honolulu. I talked to the mayor of Honolulu. He was just really amazed because they were able to get the people out. The map told a story. The third map in the center is the Fukushima radiation map. This was made by one of your colleagues in Japan, but this map was kept a secret for 4 months. Radiation, this is how radiation got into the milk supply and the rice supply, plummeted people. Of course, they evacuated 4 kilometers, but they didn't evacuate where this is. So then when the map got out, the Prime Minister got fired. Maps are important. Okay. Suitability for conservation in South Africa, these are all hotspots. A framework for geodesign. And then for government transparency, the World Bank grants where the money's going. You can see a lot of money going to Greece. People saw it, they could understand it, and rationalize what they were thinking. And then big retail chains, where we locate the multi-million-dollar investments. It's clear that spatial analytics works. And finally, climate change is telling a story to people. Your work is about storytelling. So, how many of you think you're good map storytellers? A couple? I mean, when I go to the users conference, there's thousands of maps. The ones that I can actually understand quickly, well designed, they're timely, they disseminate knowledge, they communicate importance. They support decision-making. I don't find very many of them. Right? You know what I'm talking about? Think about design. So my colleague, who now works with me, Ellen Carroll, used to run National Geographic Society, decided to start a website and build a new map every week. So he makes a story map every week, and these are done with templates that are free. You can download them for your own data and tell a story. He told a story about civil marriage last week, or he told a story about the battlefield in the Civil War, or he told a story about global climate change this summer in Europe. Each one is a story that you can interact with and tells a story. I encourage you to look at this site because this is the next step in GIS professionals' career, is to learn how to use the medium that we have built. I mean, people used to tell stories with maps. We don't do it very well anymore. And we have to integrate this kind of design thinking into our systems. Second, GIS is about integration, facilitating collaboration. That is integrating data, clearly. Maps do communicate. I already talked about that. And that means communication, facilitating collaboration. You are working with not only an understanding discipline, you're trying to create an understanding through the integration of data, but you're also dealing with a new language, and I think Greg mentioned this. And finding this understanding language is allowing us to break down the barriers between different disciplines. This is not a new idea. It's just that it's exacerbating when we deal with the web. Third, spatial analytics create understanding. I again loved Greg's term. You are in the understanding business. You're providing new insights. If you ask the question, how do I get my manager's attention? Help them understand the situation, which is what's needed and wanted. This little conference that I was at was all about trying to facilitate communication, creating understanding. Two different people, even in the same field, talking with each other. It was very clear to us we're talking around each other because they didn't have, well, we all have different languages. You think you're all one community. You do have your discipline origin, which is good. The Germans did it. All theologies, geology, sociology. Geography, in a way, helps us integrate theologies. That's why geography is such a powerful thing. Connect the integration power with the analytics power, and we create understanding. And understanding, as my friend Saul Orman says, precedes action. It's fundamental. So you're dealing with creating understanding that precedes action in all of your respective organizations, whether it's in your department, in your city, in your community. That's the language that you're dealing with. Fourth, GIS is now emerging as a platform for something I like to call geodesign. This is more than mapping. It's the integration of maps and geographic knowledge into the design process. This is the integration of science and design, conscious creation of the future to create 2D and 3D plans. How many of you are designers here? Wrong. I hate to say that. You are wrong. Who designed your little outfit this morning? Who designed your life? Who designed where you live? Who designed your relationships? Aren't you designers? Get real. You are all about creating the future. And a natural outgrowth of geoscientific careers is the design field, linking the way people make decisions with all the rich science and data that you are collecting. And here Bruce is absolutely right. It's not about the data. It's about bringing it together into meaningful information, understandings, that precede action, like design. And so Walmart designs where they locate their stores. Nike designs where they market. They're both using GIS. Starbucks designs, to speak of the Northwest here, and Nike, where they locate their stores or close them. The military designs strategies. The utilities locate their power plants. I mean, design is a foundation for decision making. And geodesign is an emerging field. It's an old field and it's a new field of trying to figure out where we locate things or how we deal with geographic strategies. And how it works is you look at alternatives. If I locate here, what's the impact? If I locate here, what's the impact? So it's quick consideration of the implications of alternative decision making. So number 4 of why it's so compelling, I think right now, why people are getting so jazzed about it, one of the reasons is they get that underneath this design thinking that's inherent in all of us is geography, spatial design, geothinking. And the more that we formalize this frontier application area, the more our data will be leveraged for dealing with what's needed and wanted to create a sustainable world. 5th, new technology is extending the concept of GIS. So most of you work, those of you who are GIS professionals, in what I would call enterprises, where you're using traditional tools of desktops and servers and federated them and bringing them together. This whole cloud world that began with visualization platforms like the Google and the Bing stuff, those are all cloud-based solutions, opened up the world's eyes to the power of geospatial visualization and the integration of it with simple things like search. LBS, it's a platform. That combined with the new device power, my iPad and my iPhone, lets me have access to lets me have access to music. This is designed by design to integrate with the cloud music system, right? You get it? So, who are the different companies that really built a reputation out of these 5 different patterns? Microsoft, clear. One might say Oracle and Sun, clear. Federated, IBM, they pushed the concept, clear. Apple with devices, Google with cloud. These are platform technologies with a few apps that made the whole world come alive. GIS today on all of these platforms is what I would say delivering great value at all kinds of scale, at local government scale and utilities in the whole globe. This is just a little forecast for your interest about global climate change over the next 80 years. Doesn't look good. This is a combination of all 17 of the IPCC models, if we do everything we can to stop it. I suppose that's a story. GIS is the framework that this modeling work is going on with. But it's one little story. All those other little stories that disappeared all tell similar interesting stories of driving efficiency, improving communication, and helping decision making. These are some examples, your examples largely, in urban planning and design, in public safety and health, dealing with social issues, crime, health. By the way, Bill Gates will talk next week, I think, about his work using GIS to eradicate polio in the northern part of Nigeria. This is one of the last of 3 spots that he's trying to close down, and he uses GIS as a framework to target and immunize kids. And it's kind of rough right there now because of all the civil strife. Mrs. Obama, as you can see, is briefing with maps, GIS-based maps, for a whole campaign of related to obesity. Utilities, infrastructure maps, public and private, and transportation, driving efficiency, making better decisions, making better designs, planning and responding to natural disasters, the Japanese quake. GIs have played a huge role, not only in responding, but also in the recovery process. And I'm very fond of this little cool map that shows in an iPhone the USGS services coming in, showing tracking of what's going on. Land information, parcel data, the foundation for the civil society. And this is going on all over America, but I think probably what you're referring to is in Ghana, where they have invented in Ghana a very interesting thing of creating a land cadastre based on agreement and a GPS around people's properties. They can't afford our kind of systems, and they are approximate parcels. But going into place is the foundation for the civil society, taxation, ownership, all of it, as a result of approximate property ownership, which allows them to do mortgages and all of that, everything. It's amazing. Ghana is the leader, I think, in the developing world of doing this. And renewable energy. Some of you are working on that. And some of you are helping economic development. Businesses locate, assess suitability for certain locations. I'm spending the time on this to have you get aware that this is not simply a trivial language. And it's opening up government. I'm really disappointed the President didn't hit on this last night. And he was the leader in transparency in our nation, and it caused people like here, even in Oregon, to have open government sites. It's amazing. That was a joke, but and finally, GIS in education. There are now thousands of schools. I know that URISA took a leadership position on this years ago to give URISA members to adopt a school, adopt a teacher. This is GIS equals STEM, right? I mean, I was with Will I Am the day before yesterday. How many of you know who Will I Am is? Okay, sorry, I'm showing off. This is a guy who really cares about his ghetto, where he came from. You know, he got out through music, he got his mom out, he got a few other his relatives out. But now he's going back in, and he sees GIS as STEM for getting kids out of the ghetto. And his whole point of view is something about the NBA and NFL. He's the big beneficiaries of football stadiums all across every high school, and basketball courts, which we spend trillions of dollars on buying uniforms, training kids. Only a few beneficiaries, a few top athletes that, you know, kids raise themselves up, and a few achievers actually make it. But look at the propaganda that goes into this. So his idea is, can't we have these rooms where we teach kids programming when they're in high school? This is possible. And by the way, not just programming, but geoprocessing. He's all into LDS, and he's rapping about it, you know, in his own stuff. I mean, this is real. So he sees it fundamentally as STEM. That was his first point. I can implement STEM by doing GIS projects in schools across America, raise it up, train kids. So, Sai, this is my real answer for how we get a broader audience going. Okay, I've covered enough about what you're doing. Some of you are actually doing more than individual projects or disciplinary work. You're building infrastructure. You're taking all the pieces of what you're doing and assembling it into these things. I visited Geneva. If you ever want to go to a totally GIS managed city, that's it. In the center of that little purple hub is the GIS, not the SAP system. It's GIS. It runs every department. Similarly in Bogota, absolutely in Abu Dhabi. These guys aren't hemorrhaging money on this. They are just strategically directing. They get it. They get that geography is the heart of decision-making and communication. And China gets it. I was there a couple weeks ago. They really get it at the national level. And even our own government at the U.S. level is starting to get beyond standards and interoperability and into designing a platform for managing the government with geography. That's pretty cool news. All right, I'm going to go through this very fast so that my friend Barry doesn't get mad at me, but I'm going to share some of the early work that I experienced with URISA. This is an early system, a drawing that I made in 1972, just as the concepts of geodesign. Actually, as it turns out, data is automated, put into a database, suitability, capability maps are made. We use that for geodesign. And we take the designs, we evaluate them, we do impact analysis, we generate forms. Same story. Geodesign's an old concept. And people were thinking this way in the 30s and in the 1800s and in the 1700s. They understood it. We just sort of prototyped this. This is URISA. This is part of our genetics stuff here. And these ideas weren't just mine. There were lots of people interacting and talking about this stuff early on. URISA birthed the whole process of user needs and the design process, looking at first, what do people need and want? This is 1973. And then what data do we have? And then how do we specify a new database? And then how do we specify a system? And then how do we implement the bloody thing? This pattern was recreated and multiplied time and time again by consultants and designers and some of you in this room. From my own personal work, I found some interesting things early on. Changed my career. After doing those studies on city after city, and particularly in Ontario, Canada, studying 132 cities, I found something amazing, that all cities do the same thing. They all do 32 geospatial things. Did you know that? They're all the same. So and I tested this in Baghdad, I tested this in Jakarta, I tested it in a lot of US cities, Canadian cities, and Bogota. And those 32 things require generic GIS things to be done. This was the fundamental work that led to initially ArcInfo in a formal way. We needed to do buffer zones, we needed to do displays, we needed to do routing, etc. So here's the full drawing. I had to search for this. There's dozens of generic tools. In those days, we called them tools and later commands that supported these 32 operations. And those same workflows created and managed several categories of geospatial data. These are the categories: administrative layers, a base map, environmental layers, engineering layers, roads with addresses, not without addresses, and land records. And the concept was we could take that data model, ring it with applications that do transaction updating to support the applications. This is early work, led to the development of GIS tools that were then implemented by some of you. Early. I'm embarrassed to talk about the level of technology that we had in those days. Yet the groundings that I got out of URISA, talking with people, doing work in some of your cities, laid down the fabric. I'm not the only one. This is a product of URISA's meetings and fun and interacting and doing it. That's why I love URISA. Okay, now why maybe some of you came to this talk. We're now at a change point in what we will have as a platform